here's what I'll say. Being married 11 years to my bride, shout out to Darlene Henry, Queen, that I try to make sure that I seek balance. So in 6 weeks, I try to get away from church and make sure that we go to Miami and sit on the beach. Or that we take a trip to New York just for the weekend. But I guess what I'm saying, I want to encourage people who are community oriented, the importance of finding balance, because you can do all the good you want in the community, but if you're not balanced, it will burn you out.
And people won't stop calling.
They won't stop calling.
You have to be intentional
That's
about.
why they said givers have to set the limit because takers rarely do. So that's something that play in my mind a lot.
I've never heard.
Can you
that.
say that again?
Yeah, that gave me chills.
It says the givers have to set the limits because takers rarely do. So that's a quote I saw, and it's kind of stuck in my head because I'm a giver, but I'm also the person that will give until I don't have. So I had to learn the word no. And I'm still learning. It's still something because I feel bad. I feel guilty when I say no. So it's something that I'm still learning. So I replay this quote in my head often.
Welcome, neighbors. Thank you for giving your time and attention to the Healthier Neighbors Mini Grant podcast, where we are highlighting previous mini grant winners and hearing from them their impact on behavioral health and the connection to community. Healthier Neighbors is a resident-led, place-based initiative prioritizing the expressed behavioral health needs of the residents of Riviera Beach and Northern West Palm Beach. Funded by Palm Health Foundation, we are one of 6 Healthier Together communities working alongside community for the past 6+ years. And on today's episode, we have Ephesus SDA Adventist Church Community Services Department, and we have the first assistant, Ms. Tasha Mullins, and we have the director, Mr. Ricardo Henry. Thank you all so much for joining us.
Thank you for having us.
Here's your applause.
All right. We'll take it.
And I'm representing today. I'm representing every day, but I'm representing today because I had the privilege of being a part of your Community Services Day that recently occurred. And I just want to back up a little bit more to my first encounter with the both of you. So my first memory of you, Tasha, is working at the church. I saw you in work. I think probably your kids first working in the youth ministries, and your son was a part of the basketball team, probably still is a part of the basketball team, a part of a lot of other ministries there, the IT team behind the scenes. He was a part of the group who won the last mini grant, and you guys can speak a little bit about that technology grant that was won by the church. And I remember seeing him in some of the behind the scenes photos, and I'm not surprised to see you here as first assistant. So that was what all that was to say. I'm not surprised to see you here because I saw you in service, and it just seems to be a part of who you are.
It is.
So thank you for that.
Thank you.
And Ricardo, my first memory of you is not as sweet, right? So it was, I don't know.
Story?
Yeah. It was, I don't know what year, but I think I was in middle school, and I was alongside some of my, as they would say, little friends. And we were at a federation, and we were being youth.
Right.
And we were,
a church convention for those who don't know.
At a church convention. And we were running up and down the hallways and knocking on doors and running and, things you do when you're away. And I remember you came out and you were our friend's, older brother. So we were like, he came outside like, we in trouble. Like, we in trouble. And you were like, hey, you guys, stop running up and down the halls. And this is, so we go in and we're like, oh man, like we hate him. He's so uncool. And
we're really going to bring that up today.
Yeah. So that is my first memory of you. I guess that would have been service to the hotel, but still in service. And I thank you all, in all serious, just for what you're doing. And I want to know from the both of you, and you all can take turns in your response, but when did you fall in love with health?
I'll let you go first.
Well, for me, like you said, you saw my son, and then I'm here. I got this from my mother. So you know, it's something that I grew up seeing her do. Thanksgiving, she would set up a tent and she would cook and she would feed whoever wants to be fed. At home, she would set up. She's Adventist, but she had Sunday school for the kids.
Really?
And yes, and she fed them, and they came, and she would minister to them. So it's something that I grew up seeing, and it's something that I'm passionate about also.
It shows. It absolutely shows. And for you, Ricardo?
Sylvester and Alberta McKinnon they were my grandparents. They passed some years ago. And my earliest memory of serving the community is seeing them. My grandfather had a store on 5th and Rosemary. And during that time, my grandmother was your typical grandmother, Black grandmother, that she held the family together. And I remember seeing her service community, people coming in needing food. My grandfather was the first person, as my uncle, Sylvester McKinnon Jr. would say, that allowed people to come in that they couldn't afford to pay on a Monday or Tuesday. So he gave them credit to be able to get food, but they could only buy food. They could not buy liquor or anything like that. And that was my first time seeing a community impact. And so that's when I first fell in love with health and community.
It's interesting how things, our experiences and where we fell in love oftentimes leads back to family.
Absolutely.
And just the importance of that. And confession, Ephesus is my family.
That's right.
This is the church home that I grew up in and went to school and played kickball in the parking lot and went out in Palm Beach Lakes to retrieve the ball and saw the circus going down Palm Beach Lakes to the auditorium. Now, the auditorium, I was going to say now the Jehovah's Witness Center, but that's my home. That's what I remember. And coming into Healthier Neighbors, I remember community expressing and Ephesus being a part of that conversation because we were privileged to be able to have a focus group with over 30 members of the church came in one evening, and we were able to meet and talk about what did behavioral health look like for them. Right. And Ephesus became a part of the conversation for Healthier Neighbors, was a part of our subcommittees. And then I remember as the faith-based subcommittee was maturing, they started to talk about having ambassador sites. And what they wanted those ambassador sites to look like. They wanted it to be a safe space for a community to come to have conversations. And they were very adamant about two things. It was, we're not looking for membership.
That's right.
We're not looking for churches to gain membership. And another thing community expressed was, we don't want any churches trying to pray the gay away if those conversations come up. We want a healthy, supportive, safe space to have these conversations and for community to come to. And without hesitation, when the ambassador site was brought to Ephesus, it was an immediate yes. What does that connection, why is that connection to community so important for Ephesus?
Well, I think, first of all, as any organization, the Adventist church is going through a transformation, as most traditional churches are. There was a time where for Adventism, as well as for Methodists and Baptists in particular, for Adventists, that we were isolated. We had our own park and our own ball, if you would, and we're going to just play with us. And so now that leadership has has changed in terms of the mindset that we have to have a impact. And when you mentioned about not trying to turn in one Adventist or to try to, I'm trying to think of the word when you have someone, they come into your denomination. What's the word? Conversion. Okay. Right. But essentially we want to, here's the phrase I like to use. We want to show the character of Christ. And and if I can just say this as it relates to Ephesus Community Service team, Matthew 25:40, which Jesus talks about, all that you do for the least of them, you're doing for me. And so to answer your question, that's the concept, that is the vision behind what we're doing as a church, community service in particular. But our senior pastor, Pastor Stephen Gates, when he sat me down about a year ago, he said, listen, I want to make community impact. without trying to do all the bells and whistles that often drive people away. And I think when you show the character of Christ, you're able to show humility, love, all the adjectives that make people want to find out. Tell me more about you.
Absolutely. And I've had the honor of meeting with Pastor Gates, and he was very interested in being new to Palm Beach County. He was very interested in how to be connected. Where do we start in this connection to community? And, a lot of wisdom and a lot of progression, I believe, has come through the community services department, right? Mm-hmm. So I'm sitting across from two individuals as the director and the first assistant of this ministry that I'm constantly seeing do homeless ministries. I'm constantly seeing, Tasha, when you post the biggest, like you have like the pots my mom uses, right?
Yes.
Like that's how I know, like I know, you know what you're doing, right? And you have those pots but also in those photos are your kids, your families. And there's so many people that will look and say, man, I really want to get something done, but I do not have the time. And then I look at individuals like the both of you who I know work very hard, are very much valued at your jobs, and you're very much valued in this position as a volunteer. So for you, Tasha, as a mom of a fashionista,
amazing
mom, and a college bound, he's in college. Mm-hmm. How do you find the time? If someone said, I want to start a homeless ministry, I would like to cook and distribute food, which I see you do that often. How do you find the time? What type of system do you have to put that in place?
You just have to make the time. For me, it's my passion. It's what makes me happy. So for me, I make the time. And when I do it, I'll post on Facebook. If you're available, come out with us. Mm-hmm. So, if it's after work, you don't have to cook. I love cooking. So you don't have to come to my house and cook. If you just want to come out and hand out food with me, great. I think everyone should experience it.
Absolutely. And I'm going to ask you at the end how folks can connect with you, because what you just said takes a lot of pressure off someone, because they may look and see, well, I don't know how to cook a big pot of soup. I just know how to cook for 3 people. But you're saying you don't need to know how to do that. It's about the fellowship. It's about coming out and being a part of it and helping to be a part of that process. Because there's a lot that goes along behind the scenes that we don't know about, right? Mm-hmm. And Ephesus now has won 2 mini grants.
Yes.
Can you tell us about the 2 that you've won?
So the first one was entitled Vashti's Diner. I want to shout out my Pastor Keith Alberry. When he watches
Shout
this, yes, he's my guy. And Pastor Alberry was really the first pastor that really sort of pushed me out of my comfort zone. Mm-hmm. One of the things I would always say, just real quickly, is that I would talk about the traditionalist at church, and then one day you and I were having a conversation, and I realized I'm the traditionalist. Yes, I'm it. So Pastor Alberry was key into, because he actually was the visionary behind the initial grant. Mm-hmm. And that was to basically offer healthy food, healthy dinners for our community. I believe it was on Wednesdays.
Yes.
And so the way it worked out amazingly, we have a childcare center, the Ephesus Childcare Center. Shout out to Maxine Bowers, my mom, and she's the director. And so what we ended up doing with that first grant was we actually serviced the parents of the kids from the childcare center.
Who are from the community.
And so that was really cool. And then our second grant, which Tasha's son wrote, which was, I believe, 2020.
Yeah. I just want you to say who wrote that grant again. Can we give him, can we say his name?
Yes, Tashawn. What, Tashawn?
Charity.
Yeah, Tashawn Charity. And Tashawn is amazing. I can do a whole hour on Tashawn. But he came in, it was myself, attorney Deanna Brown, and my mom, Maxine Bowers. And we came together and we wrote that grant. And I always kind of get it twisted. It's the technological teens of tomorrow.
Yes.
And so essentially what we were just starting the pandemic, and what parents were saying, our kids are home playing video games and they're stuck in the house. And so we created that grant so kids could come work behind the scenes at church. So that grant allowed us to purchase equipment. We actually had a piece where we had young musicians who come in, play the keyboard and drums, and it was just really cool that they came and they were part of that whole grant. We bought T-shirts for them. They go that T-shirt thing again. We bought T-shirts for them.
Gotta have a T-shirt to
Gotta
make
have a
it
T-shirt.
real.
Yes. And so till this day, we have probably maybe 15 kids that are there every Saturday. Sometimes we have to tell them we have too many people, but it has helped to bolster and strengthen our media ministry. I want to shout out my brother, Ori Bullard, the Ephesus media ministry leader. So someone is probably thinking his whole family is involved in that church.
Yeah.
So that was how we were able to get that second grant off the ground.
And a lot of the 15 that you said went through that, I saw some of them at the last program that was there at the church. And I'm looking behind the cameras, and they were all young people.
Yes.
And these are transferable skills.
Absolutely.
So when we were younger, we were learning, what was it, the 13th Sabbath, or you had to learn your
Bible verse? Yeah, memory verse.
I'm like, nobody had us behind the camera. I want to do that.
Absolutely.
That would have been fun.
Absolutely.
No offense to the Pathfinder leaders, but these are great additions to really keep kids motivated. And for you, Tasha, there are parents that are just like, wait, your kid's in college? And he's still going to church? Now, I mean, let's just be serious, right? Because your son is at that age group that a lot of churches are looking for, those active young people. Because let me tell you, if any other church met Tashawn, they want to snatch him up.
Absolutely.
Immediately. Yeah. So as a parent, what was important for you to instill in your kids, the values that you instill in them, for them to be that connected to church or even want to be there?
Actually, Tashawn is the reason that I got baptized.
Wow.
So he's actually the one that kind of pulled me in. I used to go to Ephesus, and you guys probably don't remember me, but I'm one of the people that left because of some of the traditional, And when my kids started going to Ephesus Junior Academy, that's when I started going back to Ephesus. But
Shout out to EJA.
Yes, but I was still going to... I used to visit churches, so I didn't have necessarily a church home. And when Tashawn decided that he wanted to get baptized, we all did. All three of us got baptized at the same time. So, they said a child shall lead, and he does a great job doing that. And I'm very proud of him, but I am proud of all of the young people in the church that's his age group, because a lot of them came out on Saturday in the storm that even aren't a part of the community service team. And I just saw cars popping up because a lot of them drive now.
Yes, I saw a couple pulling out the parking. I was like, who gave you keys? And it's their car. I'm like, they're all so cool. I was not that cool.
And they're there. And they're there because they want to be there, not because we're forcing them or voluntold, like Ricky likes to say. They're there because they want to be there. And I am very proud of them for that.
So you all speak a lot about community and family. Tell us a little bit about the community that you grew up in and what that experience was like.
Yeah, for me, I grew up in West Palm Beach. I actually have a tie to West Palm and Rivera Beach, in particular Monroe Heights. And shout out to Monroe Heights. My childhood was something I think that probably is a thing of the past. Back then, we'd be home before the street lights were on. Back then, it was more of a collective village in terms of who raised you. So if the neighbor caught you doing whatever, they could put a spanking to your backside back then, and you hope that they wouldn't tell your mom. And all those variables that really shaped me into the man that I am. Accountability, honesty, hard work, commitment, understanding the value of community. And so that's one of the reasons, indeed, I'm part of community services, because I understand what that was for me. Even if I can just parlay into Ephesus, because that was part of my community growing up.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that I remember we have in the Adventist Church, we had this thing called the Adventist Youth Society. And
is that gone?
It's still there.
Oh, okay.
There. Well, we call it AYM now, Adventist Youth Ministries now.
Okay.
And why that was important was because we had to get up Sarita Johnson, shout out to Sarita. She was my AY leader. Burley Grant was my AY leader. And they made us get up and speak in public. And I hated it. And so now I'm able to speak without issue when I'm up front. So these are little small things that really help shape who I was. So now I want to give that back to all the young people that I come in contact with.
I definitely feel that being put on the spot at church and leading out and also me when I was at Ephesus being a part of youth ministries, and very often at the last minute it would be, you are in charge of the afternoon program.
That's right. Yeah.
Right. And then I overthink, and then I'm like, it just has to be something so amazing.
Right.
And I would just be trying to get through it. That's it. And for you, Tasha, what was the community that you grew up in like?
So my upbringing was a lot different. I was born in Jamaica, and migrated here around 8 or 9 years old. I did a lot of moving.
Sounds like my story. Mm-hmm.
A lot of moving. So we went to New York, then we came to Florida, back to Jamaica, back to Florida, to New York, so it was a lot of moving. And then I joined the military and did more moving. But the stuff that my mom instilled in us, respect, honor, it still sticks. The stuff that I saw her doing, somebody was always living with us. She was always helping somebody. Somebody was always in need. It sticks to this day. It still sticks with me. So even though we did a lot of moving around, I remember, as far as my mom is born Adventist, but when we were younger, she didn't necessarily used to go to church a lot. She used to send us with a pastor and his wife, and it was a Sunday church. She used to preach Adventist, but she used to send us, I think, to just get us out of the house and give her some time. But the value is still aligns with, God is God. Mm-hmm. So we went to church with them, and Mr. Adams, I forgot the name of the church, but it was a local church here in Riviera Beach, and he was the pastor, and they used to pick us up, and we used to go every single Sunday faithfully. And a lot of what we learn in church, it's the same. Yes. It's the same. So that's really my upbringing, a strict Jamaican mother and Pastor Adams and his wife.
Those strict Jamaican mothers, boy, gotta love them. Gotta love them. Thank you for sharing those things. So I have participated in a few things, right? So I'm trying to think of the T-shirts that I have in my closet from Ephesus, right? So I have this one. I also have the grocery club, club that we did during the pandemic. Yes. Yeah. And there have been many, I don't want to say offshoots of the ministry, but there have been so many projects within the ministry, right? Since the win of the mini grant. And I'll say, because I think I'm pretty familiar with the church and what you all do, and you all do a wonderful job of letting others know what you're doing and letting others know how they can connect to that. Mm-hmm. So can you tell us about some of the past projects and even future projects that the community services ministry has?
Well, the thing that the approach that community services try to do is try to be holistic. That's part of our mission that we wrote as a church. Last year, we've done a variety, but in particular, last December, we had 3 initiatives. The first one was to give gifts to the community right there on Palm Beach Boulevard. Okay. We want you to know that we're here. Okay. So we gave them keepsake bags. So inside the bags, there were like some masks and some sanitizer, some candy, and a message from the pastor on there with our Facebook and YouTube information. So for seniors who are homebound, they can be able to log in to see our services. Okay. And so one of the great things when we were passing out, one of our community service members said that a lady said to her, "You all are always giving us things." Aww. So that made me feel like we're connecting. Yeah. The question is always asked, what happens if they took your church out of your community? Would you be missed?
Would anybody miss you?
Right. Yeah. And that's sort of the driving force. The other thing that we did is we adopted a community. So the community that we adopted was Christian Manor Senior Living Facility, which is off of Executive and Congress. Mm-hmm. And so this is my time to kind of big up my first assistant. So I'm really good at getting talented people in the same room. Mm-hmm. That's where my talent stops. And then I let them take over from there.
Okay.
So Tasha is an amazing cook. So what we did was shout out to Diana. She's the resident director for Christian Manor.
Mm-hmm.
So we went back and I went over and said, hey, listen, we're going to adopt you guys, and we want to just kind of find out what you need. So I did a survey from the seniors, and what they said to us was they don't really want money and this and that. They just want time spent. And so I can only imagine how that feels to be, especially during COVID, being isolated in a residential facility like that. So Diana was saying that the Palm Beach County Food Bank, shout out to them, would give them food once a week. So she had all of this spaghetti that she was trying to do something with.
Yes.
So we got together, three of us, and said that we're going to do a spaghetti dinner.
Yeah.
So we did the spaghetti dinner. She did the best spaghetti. So we had the senior residents come down, and they were able to eat.
I saw the pictures.
The funniest part was two things that was most impactful, and I'll let you speak. The first thing was one of the older residents called me over, and he says, listen, everything's perfect. You guys are amazing. He says, but you're missing one thing. I said, well, what's that? He said, well, I'm Italian.
Oh.
Yeah. He said, you're missing the cheese.
Oh,
the Parmesan cheese.
I thought you were going to say meatballs.
Yeah,
So okay.
Well, no, she had meatballs.
Oh.
Oh, no, she's not playing.
Okay.
Right. She had meatballs.
Okay.
Yeah. And so that was the first thing. And the second thing is our elders came over as well. And they were asking our elders to pray for them. And we have some very impactful pictures of the elders, Elder Milton Thomason.
These are elders
from the church.
From the church, not elderly people.
Right, yeah, elders from the church. So Elder Milton Thomason is the elder for community services. Each department has an elder over it. So Elder, and Elder T.
Yes.
Elder T came in and he prayed and he talked, and we spent how many hours there? Maybe 2 or 3 hours there. We actually got kicked out. We got kicked out because she had to go to another job. So she was like, "Okay, y'all can
have to go home."
So, but
wait, y'all got kicked out of a nurse? Okay.
Yes, pretty much. Really. What was your experience? How did you feel about that whole process?
Oh, it was great. I got adopted, actually. You don't know this, but there was a lady, she kept hugging me. So I got adopted, which is great because, my mom passed a few years ago. So that was an awesome experience. But it was great. I love cooking. It was my first time making spaghetti for 100 folks.
Wow.
But Ricky and his shout out. So I do have to shout out Shelly Ann Miller and
yes.
Patrice.
They are always by your side.
Yes.
They are probably tired of me. But, and they are very hard workers. They're single moms. Shelly works 2 jobs. So she's leaving one job and she's going to another job. And sometimes I'll call her and I'm like, hey, I'm cooking. Can you come help me hand out some food later? And she'll make it happen. So, I do really appreciate their assistance. But it's great. We had a good experience. I am my happiest given. So it was really great.
Absolutely. And those folks that are beside you,
absolutely,
those are the ones that, really, really hold it down and they don't care to be in the limelight. They come in and work their magic and then they're out. So that support from those individuals are very vital. What about future plans for community services?
We have a couple of things. The first thing that I'm really excited about, I haven't told my first assistant in detail about this.
It sounds like a setup.
Yeah. So, and what you probably know, that we have a lot of seniors in Riviera Beach that they're homebound and their homes need to be painted and renovated. Yeah. So we're partnering with a few organizations, with the Solid Waste Authority. They give away free paint for seniors. We're also partnering with the greatest fraternity in the world, Omega Psi Phi.
Go ahead.
The Kappa Upsilon chapter of Omega Psi Phi. I want to shout out Jeremy Banks. He's a police officer for West Palm Beach, and he's also the president of the spring line of Kappa Upsilon. So we spoke actually a couple of days ago. So we're going to collaborate together, and we're going to paint the house of some of our seniors. We just received I'm hoping the check's in the mail, a donation of $2,500 from the Southeastern Conference of Seventh-day Adventists, Pastor Moore. He came and spoke at our church last week. Yes, and so we're going to use some of those funds to be able to quarterly not only paint the house, but we're going to do inside and out. We're going to call it the curb appeal.
The curb appeal.
Oh, wow.
Is that what we're going to call it? Yes.
I think if you can remind me to connect you with the resident that I think may be a good fit for
Okay.
that project. Anything else on the horizon?
Our youth initiative, and we've done this before, they're going to be cooking for the Quantum House. So we talked kind of briefly about it. So they're going to try to do that quarterly as well. But my biggest passion that we're going to be doing is, as you know, Curry Park, we have a homeless residents down there. So we're going to, the vision behind this is once a month to have soup for the soul. And not only we're going to bring soup, we have a medical team, Miss Joni Johnson.
Oh, she's awesome.
She's a nurse practitioner and she leads our medical team. So we want to bring the soup, but we also want to have blood pressures, check A1Cs, whatever ails you. We want to be able to give a health consultation for those homeless residents. And so if it's something that we can refer them to, we're going to do that. So we literally are excited about what's going on in the future. I joke with her. I call her on Sundays, and I said, I know when you see that 561-541-3726, I know you roll your eyes. But Tasha's amazing. And let me just say this if I can. Tasha, the reason she even became my first assistant is when I saw that she would go out and literally, not wanting accolades, she would, on her own dime, go out to feed our homeless. And so that's why I pulled in. She actually should be the community service leader. And so, God willing, we will transition her into that in the years to come. But she...
it's always the folks who think they're not ready.
Yes.
It's like, you're so ready.
You're so ready. Because, readiness is just a willing heart. And when you have a willing heart, God works with you. And we believe in the power of the Holy Spirit. We believe in the power of God. And we believe in the power of family. And the last thing as relates to community service, for me, it's about engaging our young adults. Attorney Cheryl Reed would say, I'm not a young adult. I have adult bills.
Yeah, he says that very often.
Very often, yes. But if you look at our team, a mass majority of them are between the ages of 25 and 45. And that's intentional because for many traditional churches, they're not really into being inside of the wall. So that's why can I turn around?
Sure.
Yeah. So that's why on the back of our shirts here, let me see if I can talk one. It says the church has left the building. I'm not sure if you can see that.
So that's on the back of my shirt too.
It's on the back of your shirt as well.
Thank you for letting me know. Yeah. The church has left the building.
The church has left the building. And we are very intentional in just ensuring that we are transformative in the way that we do ministry. And here's the last thing I promise, that one of the older members came to me yesterday at work. I worked with her. And she said, Rick, I believe all the ministries should go through community service. Is what she said, going into nursing homes, going into juvenile treatment facilities, whatever the case may be. And so I'm just excited that impact was made.
The impact, the involvement, the future. What makes Tasha excited about community services?
Just being able to help, folks. I say it all the time. A lot of us are closer to being homeless than we think. And we don't realize that. We think that we're invincible, we're working, we have jobs, we have careers, we have everything.
And unfortunately, the pandemic proved that for a lot of people.
Because we saw so many more people out there than we used to see before.
Wow.
So I'm just excited about what we can do. I love going out. I love talking to the homeless folks, because people will see them out there and they'll feed them, but they don't want to, sit and talk them. Because a lot of folks, even though they'll help, they still think they're better than these folks who are regular people that were just like you and I at some point. So I love going out there. We don't just go and hand out food and leave. We'll talk.
It's a ministry.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm very excited about how we can help in the future.
So what's interesting is that one of the pillars that residents wanted to focus on as it relates to behavioral health, that was really shocking for me when I came in this position. Honestly, I did not expect it, was a connection with faith-based and community. And quick backstory on that, since we're here in church. Right. When I went to pursue my master's with my very, very horrible relationship with Sally Mae and a couple others, right? We did not have good relationships.
Right.
But I said this prayer and I was like, God, if you just let me get in somebody's school, and just prove that I can do better, I'll use my degree for you. I don't even know, right? So graduated and I'm like, okay, am I gonna get hired at a church? Like, what does this look like? And coming to this position and then hearing community say, one of our behavioral health requests is that we want to be reconnected with the churches and community. And I was like, is this it? Like, is this what I'm doing? And then it was going back to my home church, going to many other churches. So I was grateful to have relationships in community, and then finding out from churches like Ephesus that we want to help. We just don't really know where to start.
Right.
How do we get connected with the resources? Because most time churches think we have to have all the money to do this. We don't have a big enough budget for this. We have a building fund and we have this going on or that going on. Where would we find all this money to feed? And one thing that you all have spoken a lot about, right, that has really transitioned from the time that I was attending regularly is your connection to community resources. So you're talking now about Solid Waste Authority, you're talking now about the Palm Beach County Food Bank,
Yes.
and many other connectors. So for churches that are ministries, right? Because this is a ministry. The church has left the building.
Yes, absolutely.
This is a ministry. So for ministries that are saying, how do you even get Solid Waste Authority on the phone? Who do you talk to at the food bank? How did you get this going? We're not a big church we're not a mega church, where folks are coming to us. Where did you all start this process?
I'm going to say this, and we were having this conversation with my brother, Ori Bullard, and he made a point to me maybe about 2 years ago. At the end of the day, it's about relationships. So there's a backstory to this. So when we did the Palm Beach, the food club, I'm going to admit to everyone, I did not want to do it. And because I had a million things going on or whatever case may be. So Jeanette and Ori, essentially we met and really gave me the vision on it. And when we did it, that's when connections begin to make. We begin to make connections. And so what ends up happening, we do the food bank. And when we do the food bank, I made connection with Palm Beach County Healthcare District as well. So our church also facilitated the vaccination. We had the bus come.
Yeah, you did have a bus there.
The bus come, yes.
Which was another collaboration.
Absolutely. And so all of that was simply when we were with the food bank, with the food club, being in the parking lot, talking to someone who was part of the health district. So I guess what I'm saying is it's relational, just being out there, making connections with people, building relationships. And for the church, one of the biggest factors, one of the biggest goals is evangelism. And evangelism used to look like you have a track, remember the tracks, and you pass them out?
Door to door.
Right. Yeah. Evangelism has transitioned to collaborating. And so you're not trying to, again, convert people, but them to understand the character of Christ. So as a church, I think it begins with getting outside of your comfort zone and building relationships.
Outside the building.
Outside the building. And building relationships is how you make connections with various organizations.
I'm always looking at opportunities for people to learn. And I know that there are ministries that are really interested in learning from you. So, at the end, when folks are able to get your contact information, I would hope that people would reach out to learn from them. Seriously, because it's the kindness, it's the details, about the event. So, and sometimes people fail to remember that folks are human.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yes,
so when we're putting on events, what would get me out the house? How is someone going to benefit? How can we all be better for this experience? And how can we give folks the most when they come out so they don't have to come out every day, but you can come out this day and get this much, right? And that takes a lot of work, a lot of thought. I know there's a lot of meetings.
Yes.
There's a lot of calls on Sunday morning when Tasha trying to chill.
Right.
But So what does that chill look like, right? Because we talk about all this work that you all do, but how do you take care of yourselves?
I'm still learning that.
We just had this conversation. So and I'm going to let you chime in here. When you have the personality types that we have, we were both saying we don't sleep a lot. And so, I guess we need to have a second assistant to kind of balance us out, I think, because we were both saying that a lot of times at night when I lay down in your head,
it just keeps going.
It's just going, what's the next
Ideas,
thing? Yes.
yeah.
But here's what I'll say. Being married 11 years to my bride, shout out to Darlene Henry, Queen, that I try to make sure that I seek balance. So in 6 weeks, I try to get away from church and make sure that we go to Miami and sit on the beach, or that we take a trip to New York just for the weekend. But I guess what I'm saying, I want to encourage people who are community oriented, the importance of finding balance, because you can do all the good you want in the community, but if you're not balanced, it will burn you out.
And people won't stop calling.
They won't stop calling.
You have to be intentional
that's
about.
That's why they said givers have to set the limit because takers rarely do. So that's something that play in my mind a lot.
I've never heard.
Can you
that.
say that again?
Yeah, that gave me chills.
It says the givers have to set the limits because takers rarely do. So that's a quote I saw, and it's kind of stuck in my head because I'm a giver, but I'm also the person that will give until I don't have. So I had to learn the word no. And I'm still learning. It's still something because I feel bad. I feel guilty when I say no. So it's something that I'm still learning. So I replay this quote in my head often.
And if I can say this, and the balance that we're learning now, so we have a budget at the Ephesus Church. And what Tasha does a lot of times, I'll call her with the visions. Hey, just Tasha, so just recently I had her to do something. We want to do some presentations for members at church. And I've called her several times and said, hey, I want this done. What is the cost? And then she'll say, okay, I'll let you know. I still haven't found out. So I'm pressing her to understand the importance of, I can see if we don't have the money and we're trying to, but we have the money. So I'm talking about balance, and I'm speaking of those because often you'll take out your pocket
every time,
and so you'll say on the light bill, I'll just put a hold on that and try to figure that out. So learning how to set limits in terms of budget, that's huge, because I would do that, kind of take out my pocket. So for both of us, learning how to understand the system so that we can have longevity. And that's something I preach to my team. I don't want to just do this for the next 6 months. As long as God gives us breath, I want to do this long term. So how do we set a structure in place so that if Ricky decides tomorrow I'm going to take my ball and go somewhere else, the system is in place so it can carry, God's ministry can carry on.
It's interesting that you talk about structure and we talk about infrastructure a lot, especially with nonprofits and how are they set up, right? And I think that what is enriching for Ephesus is that the transition is happening where it's beginning to look like a business. It's an operation, right? So you understand your mission, right? The mission never fails, what we are here to do as human beings. And oftentimes churches don't see that balance, that budget, that structure. What does that look like for your team? Because there are unfortunately many churches that are buildings that are only open on one day. And folks will walk past there hungry because they know that's not somewhere I can stop. Or I've never seen anybody over there except for on traditionally Sunday, in this case, Saturday. I've never seen anyone over there. So for ministries that are listening and I'm not saying you all have it all the way together, right? Because we're all a work in progress in all of the service that we're doing. But what are some fundamentals that are a part of this ministry that help to sustain it?
Well, so I just became community service leader maybe about 2 months ago.
Okay.
Tasha became the first assistant about a month ago.
Welcome to the both of you.
Right. And so one of the things that I just shared with them is I created an executive team. And so that executive team was created so that we have checks and balances. So what happens at a lot of traditional churches, they have a great person to come in. I'm calling myself a great person, and that has a great heart. And they just say, oh, just go and do whatever you do. And she'll tell you what I said to her. I said, no, we need to have a system in place so it's checks and balances so that you understand what the budget is. You understand what our mission is. You understand how we work within the confines of the church. We understand the legal side. So when you go out, when you take your team out, that you understand that there's legal ramifications if someone's handing out food and get hit by a car.
It's very important.
Yeah, all these things. So we are learning that structure now. And so I encourage ministry leaders to have those difficult conversations, and especially if you have a organization that's above you. We have the Southeastern Conference of Seventh-day Adventists, our community service department. They have various trainings to kind of help us to kind of get us going in the right direction. So just being informed in terms of structure. So to answer your question specifically is that we have our executive team, and our executive team essentially will report to our elders board. Our elders board would take that information to our church board. So there's a check and balance towards what we do. Ultimately, what happens at the church board is brought to the church at large. And that's how that communication piece takes place. And the last thing I'll say, and this is why it's important to have a budget and have structure. If you just spend your money, or if you just do whatever, when you stop doing it, then your church said, well, so-and-so, when he was there, we never had to pay for food and clothing and stuff. So why do we,
why do we have to do it now?
Right. So that's why I'm trying to kind of get us where we need to be in terms of understanding structure.
Yes, and that things cost.
Things cost.
They do.
Ministry cost.
So, Tasha, for you and the conversations that you're having with a lot of the homeless population, and others in community, because it's not only homeless individuals that the ministry interacts with. What are some things for you that stay at the priority list, or that you're ensuring that this is taken care of each year or each term, because this need has not gone away? So what are some things that you are hearing that you absolutely keep at the top of the priority list?
When we go out there, really, I think a lot of the folks just want to have conversation. Mm-hmm. They want their story to be heard. I don't know if you remember Jacob.
Yes.
When we went out, and this was after the spaghetti dinner. Mm-hmm. We went out. We brought the rest out to the homeless folks.
More ministry after the original ministry.
Okay, right. And it was just handing out what was left, and there was one guy out there, and he just really wanted to tell his story. Mm-hmm. So for me, it's having compassion when we go out there, listening, because we were all tired, and yes, we were all ready to go because it was a long day and we wanted to go and rest. But Jacob needed us to just hear him. He really just wanted us to hear him, and he told us his story, and he cried, and I think it's just having the compassion, remembering that these folks, when we go out there, that they're human. And they just want to be heard.
And that's a huge part. So what I love most about what you all speak about is that there's a place for everyone in ministry.
Yes.
Because some people will say, well, I'm just nice, or I only have a nice smile, or, and then there's folks who are like, yeah, I'm not the one to put before the camera. I got a mean face. Just put me in the back with the bread rolls. I'll get it done. So it's like everyone that is listening, that is saying, and I hear this often in community, and I hate it when folks say, I'm just a resident. Both of you are residents of the Healthier Neighbors community, right? The mini grants that you've won doesn't even touch the work that you're doing, right? And some of this work, a lot of it is listening and connecting and praying, fellowshipping, and being there, and really having community understand that you're there. So when you talk about servicing the people around you first, right? Because those are the folks that if you have a great day, you might accidentally block their driveway, and you just want to make sure when you get out that your car is still there. So like, that church, they take care of us. We're not going to get rid. But those little things are really important, because those are the relationships. And I really appreciate the relationships that have grown. Is there anything else that the community, as we're wrapping up, can expect from Ephesus on a whole as we're moving forward?
Well, the one thing I want to and just invite everyone, we are on Facebook, the Ephesus West Palm Beach, as well as YouTube. We have a dynamic praise team.
Yes.
We have an amazing youth ministries department, as well as children's ministries department, as well as, of course, community services. We have a very in-depth Bible study class that has transformed. You'd be amazed. That has transformed.
My dad was a part of that.
Yeah, that relates now to like real life situations. So we just want to encourage everyone to log in and to come by and visit with us. Most of all, and I like to say this, most of all, we just want the people's prayers. Because I think at the end of the day, everyone kind of has their thing that they do, but having the prayers of individuals praying for you for just strength and unity and togetherness, in a time that you have something like this, the devil's busy trying to figure out what I'm going to do to kind of throw things into a flux. So just want to end on saying that we want folks' prayers. Of course, they can always reach out to us via our website, Ephesus West Palm Beach. EphesusWestPalmBeach.org.
Okay.
All right. And then we have everything on there. You can give if you want to. We have a giving platform on there.
And they can also give to the ministry, correct?
Yes. Okay. And that's Cash App. Ephesus West Palm Beach is our Cash App. WPB. Yes. And actually, to that point, I had posted on Facebook about our Cash App, and someone donated a handsome amount to us. So I know I've mentioned twice about donations, but don't stop giving. We need to keep giving.
Because the work doesn't stop.
It never stops. It never stops.
But what I'm really excited about is that this team really knows how to make a dollar stretch.
Yes.
Right. And sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's like you don't want to brag about that, like making $1 out of 15 cents. But, spaghetti for 100 people doesn't sound cheap, but when you know how to season and put things together, you can show other ministries like, hey, this is how you get it done. So that's really exciting for me. So one of the closing questions that I asked everyone that came on, I didn't give you all this ahead of time. Yeah. So, don't kick me under the table. But, and both of you can answer this, please. It kind of stemmed from something that Ricardo used to say years ago when you would say you're screaming in a bubble. I don't know if you still say that.
I do say that.
But our closing is, what are you screaming? What do you want people to hear? And either of you can go first.
I want to share a story.
Sure.
Briefly. I went to Popeyes to pick up some food for the kids. And there was a young guy in there, probably early 20s, and he kept asking everyone for $1. And I had $2. I gave it to him. And he asked everyone, and most people said no. This lady told him no and gave him the nastiest look. And then he reached in his pocket and he had money. And then she started going off on him. You're in here begging these folks and whatever. And I'm thinking to myself, that could be his rent that he's short on. It could be the money for a bill that he has in his pocket, and maybe he doesn't have money to get food. It's $1. What is $1 to us? What is $1 to most of us? It's nothing. So I want people to be able to put themselves in somebody else's shoes, to understand that $1 could make a difference in this kid's life, and it means nothing to you. And we don't know why he's begging. One thing my mom used to always tell me, she used to tell me in her, Tasha, you always gonna get your blessing. She'd tell me, whatever I do, don't look at what the person, it could be somebody in a mansion that asks me for $1. I'm going to give it to you if I have it, because that my blessing is not coming from that guy in the mansion. And that's something that stuck with me forever. If you can do something for somebody, do it. You'll get your blessing. It's not coming from a man. It's coming from God.
That's a sermon.
You got to follow her. What are you screaming? You just want to be silent.
I just want to be silent. Well, just I guess it sort of echoes and the same sentiment. For me, it's the importance of community. And what I mean by that is just the village. A lot of times, especially with our youth and young adults, we tend They tend to want to isolate and kind of do their own thing. But just understanding that you are who you are because of the person whose shoulders you're standing on. And so I just, one of my young adults who I'm very close with, we kind of had a spat about her coming to church last Sabbath or what have you. And I was sharing with her that it's not about you coming to sing or you coming to play an instrument. It's about just being family, being with people who knew you when. And it allows you the opportunity to gas back up to face this world again. And when you operate in silo or by yourself, you don't have the affirmations and the love. You actually text when I sent you the text the other day about it was so good seeing you last Sabbath, and you said in your text, "Oh, it was a love and family." That's exactly what I felt. And so whether it is the Adventist Church, whether it is you at Payne Chapel, whether you are from Morrow Heights, whatever your village is, find that connection and build on it, feed into it, invest in it, give to it, whatever the case may be. And ultimately, this is something that folks have a hard time swallowing. Many of the investments that you make, you'll never see on this side. And I reflect on a lot of the folks from Ephesus who have passed on that are the reason that I'm here now. The joke that I have with Keith Allen, who was a very good friend of mine, his dad, Rodney Allen, was the head deacon at the time. We still call each other head deacon at this time, as a joke. And when I would come home from college, Bethune-Cookman University, he would, when I would come home as a freshman, sophomore, junior, he would put $20 in my hand.
Wasn't that something?
Yes. And reflecting back, he wasn't a rich man then, but he saw the value and he invested in me. He was part of my village, my community. And so he's long since resting in Jesus. But here I am, standing as the community service leader because of his investing in me. So what am I yelling in the bubble? Invest in your community, invest in your village, and ultimately it would pay dividends.
That is a beautiful ending. Investing in the village, understanding the village, and understanding where your blessings come from.
Yes.
So with that, neighbors, we are closing. We thank you so much for joining us for this mini grant podcast. We hope that through this conversation, you've seen how you can contribute to your community through a mini grant or through service and acts of kindness. And we ask that you continue to follow us on our social media platforms on Facebook and Instagram. We hope that you will be applying for a mini grant this year, and we hope to see you again. Thank you very much. Thank you.